we'll move into learning about crafting effective prompts. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. There are a number of approaches that you can take. My mental process behind it is very much like drafting a paper, and that, the first version won't always be the best version of that prompt. Maybe it gets you what you need if you're just doing some simple prompting, but as you need to dig in and potentially do more complex prompts or try to get information, there are some tricks that you can deploy to help you get a good response, a good working response the first time through. So let's go into it here. So just like anything, I mean, many times you hear the garbage in, garbage out, and it's a popular one I hear. I prefer, quality in, quality out, but that's just like anything. If I ate nothing but cheeseburgers and French fries and pizza, that wouldn't be very good for my physical health. And it's the same thing for entering prompts. If it's generic or if it's unfocused, your results most likely won't give you a lot of confidence in using these systems. Uh, a clear prompt can take a little bit of time to get to that. So our goal is to kind of structure these requests so we have more predictable quality. And that's what we're really seeking in this is that we want to have a quality prompt the first time through, um, and then refine from there. Part of it is just being mindful of, these do take a lot of energy to generate prompts, and just kind of goofing off, learning and experimenting is fine. But as we start to hone this craft, we can have better quality outputs earlier in the process. So a simple prompt would be, write about the Civil War. There are whole books and sections of bookstores on, Civil War. There's tons of shows. There's so much information. What it's going to do is it's going to give you a very basic summary in that case. Whereas if you refine that prompt a little bit more and tell it to act as a historian, I know we've got a noted Russian historian in the crowd here today, so uh, keying in on this example for you, but act as a historian, summarize. So we're telling it what we wanted to do, not just give 3 bullet points, but summarize 3 causes. So even just a small change along those lines are going to net you better results the first time through, rather than something that's just so broad as write about the Civil War. And it's like, well, do you want it from the perspective of the North or the South? Or do you want economical implications, political implications? What do you want? Summarizing 3 key causes, acting as a historian gives you a different, uh, gives the large language model just a little bit more context on what it is exactly that you're looking to get. I believe Nico has seen this one before, but I'm going to use the prompt RAFT. There are other approaches to this as well. I like this one because it's pretty simple and it's easy to remember. Hey, I need a RAFT. But this little framework here is going to help with clarity for any type of generative AI tool, whether it's a large language model, or in this case, I use a presentation generator for my presentations. But by giving it more clarity, just using these 4 type of keys here can be very helpful. So we talked about the RAFT. The first one, R, is the role. You want to define what that AI's persona or perspective is going to be. Like in the last example, you're acting as a historian. You could even go a bit further on that, say you're acting as a Civil War historian, because we can get it granular to that level. Having that persona tells it who it is. It's kind of like giving it its professional identity, if you will. Up next, our audience. You're going to specify who that generated content is for. So in this case, I often will say, my audience is graduate students or undergraduate students, senior leadership, uh, you know, people who report to me, students. We can define that audience. You could even go and say for a 10-year-old, 20-year-old, 40, 60, whatever that is, those keys on audience will help refine that information through on your first prompt. Give it a format. Do you want a 200-word summary? Do you want 5 bullet points? Do you want a 15-page paper with references and citations? Do you want a numbered list? that is helpful information. We think about that, and when students ask for templates or for assignments, it's almost like you're templating, and you're telling students, here's the format that I'm looking for this. I want it in APA format. That's a very specific example there. If you got an MLA or Chicago style, you say this is not APA format. This is not what I want. We pass that back to the student. Same type of deal here for generative AI. If you want it to be an email to a supervisor or an email to students, specifying that audience and that format will help you get a better result the first time through. And then give it a job or a task. Tell the AI what it is that you want it to achieve. And oftentimes giving it examples of what a final product looks like will be very helpful too. So before I go into the next slide, are there any questions about the raft? And I'll give you chances to work on this today as well. Seeing as there are none, I will move along. So for the role, again, you are a writing tutor, you are a research assistant, you are a marketing expert. That is really, think of it similarly to filters. It's going to filter out the information that say, okay, well, marketing expert, I don't need to talk about or look at information for the Civil War. I'm looking for more specific type of information. I find it very helpful. I don't do it with every single prompt that I do. If I'm looking to plan, dinner or something quick, or just like I've got 5 ingredients, what can I make? I don't need it to be like you're Wolfgang Puck and you've got 5 ingredients and you've got 30 minutes. We don't need to go to that level, but in a professional sense or being more organized, certainly giving it a role and telling it who you want it to be right from the get-go is going to help you net better results the first time through. And again, that audience, I like this one for an undergraduate audience, or sometimes you may have to say, write this for an eighth grade reading level. Explain this to me in basic terms. You want to match their level. This is an intro to history course, Greg. This isn't, Russian history 4000, uh, tales from the gulag, whatever you want to call it. And then tailor that message. That context will help shape that clarity, which I think is, a reason why we're all here today is that we want to get a little bit more clarity on how to use these tools. And I do like that aspect of matching their level because when I'm using generative AI to come up with, usually it's like forum prompts or assignments or engaging, types of materials. It's, I let it know this is for a graduate course, this is for an undergraduate course within this discipline. Maybe here's some of the key knowledge they already have, or I want to pull from this particular um, subject. It does help by defining that audience, get you the results that you want sooner. And again, do you want tables with columns or rows? Do you want 300 words? Do you want 1,000 words? We think of these things when we're building assignments, right? We actually oftentimes will give students instructions on what the output expectation is. Maybe we don't give them exactly what the heading for each, piece of the paper would be or each part of the project. But if we're looking for a specific format and a specific style, we often explain that in the instructions. You can absolutely do that with a generative AI tool as well. And then, bulleted list, paragraphed, short, long, all of that stuff, the format that you're looking for, this is all stuff that, we're already familiar doing in setting healthy expectations for students. And we can absolutely do that with uh, generative AI tools as well. Give it a job, right? This is delegating in many ways. If you wanted to create a survey, tell it, create a survey. Do you want some quiz question examples or practice quiz examples? Great. A list of vocabulary terms based off of an academic article you got from Kresge. Fantastic. It can do many of those types of things. Being specific and set those clear goals. What would be, successful for you? But by giving it a job, being very concise about what you want it to be, what type of expert you may want it to be, and exactly what you want it to do is going to net you better results. So let's put this all together really quickly. The role as a research assistant. Your audience is first year students. You want a bulleted list and three main causes of the Civil War. So this is a pretty simple prompt here that's going to net some fairly decent results. Act as a research assistant writing for first year students. Summarize the three main causes of the Civil War in a bulleted list. Remember the first prompt that we did? It's just like, tell me about the Civil War. Oh boy, it will tell you all about the Civil War. It will give you a lot of information. But now we're telling it, we want you to be a research assistant. You're writing for first year students. So we're not going to get too deep, too far out there to say, you're not the Fulbright scholar on this. It's going to make that audience appropriate. And you're saying summarize three main causes. Now, you may not agree with what those three main causes are. And I'm not saying that you have to agree with what Gen AI says. Maybe you think differently. That's okay. But as a starting point to get something to work with as a first draft, this will be an effective prompt to help you get started. And it's not three paragraphs long. It's not this complex thing. Like I can show you complex prompts that I've used to develop chatbots. But by following this RAFT pathway, by giving a role, specifying your audience, giving it a format and a job or a task, you're going to net better results on that first prompt rather than getting frustrated or it's not giving me what I want. This makes it much more specific. So we're going to practice a little bit. Hopefully all of you have a computer handy. I'm joking since we're all on Zoom. Let's refine some vague prompts together here. So we're going to take a few minutes and you can be on camera or off camera. I could do a show of hands and send you into smaller breakout groups for a few minutes to work together on refining these prompts if we're up for it. I know sometimes when someone says breakout sessions, you start to see the attendance just plummet on these things. So we can let's just try it as a group here. Take a few minutes and refine these prompts, and then we'll come back and talk about it as a group. Okay. So I'll give you 5 minutes, and then we'll talk about this one for about 5 minutes. I'll set my timer now, and I'll go off camera so you don't think I'm watching. Just another minute or two here and we'll come back together. All righty. Let's come back together. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment here because I'm going to share a different screen this time. All right. So I have got OU's version of Gemini pulled up on this screen twice so that we can have an idea of how the prompts and the responses will look different based on what we do. So do we have any brave volunteers who would like to share their edited prompt or write a letter to my boss? You can share it in the chat if you like. Michelle?
This is a rookie one, but I just said, please act like a junior faculty member and write a professional letter to my chair in a paragraph style to let them know I've won the
Okay.
lottery and I won't be returning.
Oh, I wish I had the captions pulled up for that. Let's try that one again here. Act as a junior faculty member. Okay.
Um, and write a professional letter. I didn't want it to be, text or abbreviated words.
Yeah. Or
Um,
snarky.
yeah, to my chair in paragraph style. I guess you could put APA if it was something formal, and let them know that I've won the lottery and I won't be returning, but it's been a slice.
We won't be returning. And then what?
It's been a slice. Like something happy ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Write a letter to my boss. Let's see what this gets us. Just a sec, it says. That's a great idea. Of course, you're the best ever. I just want you to know that every time. Yeah. The large language models are very happy to pat you on the back for the most mundane of things. What's the purpose and what tone should it have? So now Gemini's asking us questions. Like, wait a second, I'm asking the questions here. So let's see here what we get. Act as a junior faculty member, a professional letter to my chair in paragraph style, let them know I've won the lottery and I won't be returning. Gonna make my screen a little bigger here. So look at here. This one gave you an immediate resignation, junior faculty. Please accept this letter as my immediate resignation from my position as junior faculty member in the Department of insert department, effective at the close of business today, October 31st, 2025. I understand that an immediate departure is not standard procedure and apologize. All right.
Nice. Good structure, something I can work
Not
with.
bad. Yeah. Yes, David, it's still making you work part time.
I feel like it should be like that. It should still be personalized and make it sound like your voice.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, you can do that. You can absolutely, ask it to write more so in your tone, your voice. What we can do here, the way that this pulled up is kind of their canvas where you can edit inline directly in here, whereas over here, you're not able to edit as much. So when you see this pull up, you're able to go in and make those edits directly in there as well. Um, Grammarly is all over the place, wants me to do all sorts of stuff. And welcome to David Stewart, one of the OUWB librarians who's also doing some great work. Is it possible to train Gemini to recognize your voice? I suppose in a way mini train it. Yeah, I can have it right in my tone. This was one of those early things in large language models where it was happy to, try and write your in your tone. All right, let's say create a study guide. Let's try our next example here. Create a study guide. So it's given us a template this time. What is the subject or topic? It's still trying to get more information from us here, but it is trying to give us an outline, at least an example output of what we're looking to do here. Does anybody have an example of their own that they would like to try here? If you have it in the written down somewhere or typed out somewhere, you can absolutely share it in the chat and I can copy paste it over. Otherwise, happy to transcribe. Any takers on this one? Oh, okay, here we go. Act as a college professor teaching junior level nutrition class, create a study guide including macro and micro nutrients. Yes. And here we are back to more of this. Nope, don't want that. Junior level nutrition study guide, macro and micronutrients. I cannot confirm these results. Again, I always say that, our expertise is in validating these results, the information that comes out. I'll often hear you can't trust everything AI tells you. I'm like, you can't trust everything Greg Aller tells you, nor should you. It's the same thing with working with people or with Google results. Do you go to the 10th page of your Google results to find the information? No, most likely not. Maybe some of you do, and that's okay. But we'll often look at those first few ads that are bumped up through search engine optimization or through sponsored ads. Those are the ones that get pushed to the top. It doesn't necessarily make them the best knowledge or the best piece, but certainly the one that has won the popularity contest with Google. So as a study guide, again, concepts. When you export these out, you can adjust these tables to make them bigger too. But it is giving us, sorry about the jumping around here. It's giving us some concepts, some key details to know. All right, we got another one. Act as an experienced academic tutor, writing for a college student, produce a study guide about consumer behavior, ensure it organized by key concepts, summaries, and sample. Ooh, this one's giving even more on how you want that output to look. And remember, this is using OU's version of Gemini. So this is the free version that we're using here. This is not the paid or upgrade version. So let's take this other example we have here in the chat, take a look at it. Consumer behavior study guide, understanding the why, key concepts, summaries, and sample questions. So here's your key concepts. We won't go through them. Here's your summary, and here's some sample questions. Wonderful example here. You've given it a very targeted output, and it's happy to provide that information and structure that you have. Again, key concepts, summary, sample questions. Excellent example. And we'll do one more quick here. Last one. Help me with the presentation. If anybody wants to share an example that they have in theirs. If not, I can move along to the next one as well. I will say it is nice that the large language models have come around to asking you more information when they need it. I often, if I'm uncertain when I'm prompting, at the last sentence I'll put on a prompt is, do you need any clarification or additional information to get started? And that is just simply prompting the AI to say, do you have enough information to get started? Did I give you enough detail? Because they've gotten better at understanding that, effective prompting matters. And I think the large language models, they've all moved in that direction uh, to help you get better results and instill more confidence. I'm going to treat ChatGPT as a daily limit. Is that true of Gemini? Yes, you're going to run into limits with Gemini, especially if you're doing, you know, higher level research stuff or large complex prompts. I'll often see where it is, a certain time things will reset for you. But that is one of the downsides of working with the free version is that you'll run into limits. I'm going to hop back into my prompts here. Right thing here. All right, we've already done a fair share of this, but I do think that some of the prompts that we had gotten in this last has helped cover some of this as well. And these are some really cool examples. These are some examples that are going to help you, with some of your coursework in developing that content. But let's just have a brief discussion. Let's compare with others and just share and discuss the results that we had seen with a little bit of prompt encouragement here. So just any comments on what we saw going from the very basic prompt to the more refined prompt. Greg Eller, you're shaking your head up and down, yes and no. What are you thinking, my man?
I think that I like this whole format of structuring your prompts. I think it gives you a solid basis from which you can work and refine. And that's why I came to the presentation. I wanted to know more about how to do this.
Dan, I can chime in too. It's almost like a mere reflection of your effort. There's like stereotype that just, people assume that AI is just going to do it all for you. And this is a prime example that, it's not pulling a rabbit out of the hat magic. It does require some effort, some forethought, and some structure in order to get what you're expecting out of it.
Mhm.
I just think it's an interesting idea, the R and raft, like defining the role. Like I tend to not do that. I like one example is I use it for like my minor car repair stuff. And I really just normally just ask it, how do I do this? How do I pull this part out? Do you really think it makes a big difference to say like you're an experienced Toyota mechanic with 25 years of experience? It's an interesting thing
Mhm.
that's helpful, but it is.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you could just say, you're a Toyota mechanic.
Right.
That's not going to start looking for information on a Cadillac CTS. It's going to start looking for that. But I mean, the context can be I'm working on, this type of vehicle from this year, this, trim package, whatever it may be, to give it that
100%.
information on that as well. I like taking pictures of stuff sometimes too, and just like,
Mhm.
what is this? Tell me, explain this to me.
That's
We
good.
had a great example in an AI literacy course I taught to seniors. My friend had a picture of his lawn was just covered in like spider webs, right? And he's like, what is going on here? This is my yard. It's not happening on any of my neighbors. So uploaded that picture and it gave us all sorts of information. And then it's like, what do they eat? What eats them? Where do they typically live? And it's these interesting spiders that do stuff like that. So another idea is if you want to enhance and you've got a picture of something that you're working on, that might be another option or opportunity for you too, Xander.
That's a great idea. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Can I just to bump put another thought on that one. The idea of like saying like take your time and think about it. Like people used to recommend that a lot at the end, say like really take your time on this one. Is that a
Mhm.
good thing to do?
You can tell it to do that.
It
I think
almost
in
seems
response,
ridiculous. Like why should I tell it? You know what I mean? Like shouldn't it assume I want a good answer, like a well thought out answer? But should I say that
it's
every time, you know?
not necessarily. I mean, we don't want to assume on its behalf on what it's going to do. It's really just predicting what that next letter or word or thing that it thinks you want to hear is coming out. Again, I mean, no emotions on these things. It's just, regurgitating text, but in a very, impressive way that it can do this information. You can tell it to do that. You could also use the deep research mode or like kind of their more reason and logic type models on there. Those are built with the intent that it will take more time to go through and do its research. I use agentic systems outside of the OU ecosystem for more of that type stuff. DeepSeek, I have not gone down that rabbit hole very far, but it's a very, big model worldwide that is more so built to be more agentic forward or reasoning and logic models. David says, I wonder if it'd be more useful to say something like, please check your work several times or something along those lines. Absolutely. Tell it that. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, I don't claim to be the expert on this, and I love hearing ideas on this is, I'll ask, do you need any additional information? Others may say, check your work several times. Or you might go through an iterative process, which we'll talk about it here in a minute too. It's really working these systems in ways, I mean, having an effective prompt is certainly one, but using your own curiosity and questioning these things. For our faculty, that's what you've done for so long with your schooling, your academic pursuits, and sharing that with your students and with others is that you've pushed your curiosity. And I encourage you to continue doing that with the large language models too. We already speak this language. It's just, the confidence to say, I reject or I accept that as a starting point. And more often than not, it is a starting point. I use this to draft reports, draft presentations, but I do, a fair amount of editing to make sure that this is my voice that's coming through here, that I accept this information and I'm willing to share this information. That confidence right there comes from me having that human eye to verify, yes, this is what I want. This is the message I want to share. And I encourage you to take on that approach as well. So what changed when you added some of that detail? What do you think made the biggest difference and how did being specific on that level improve your output? Let's just keep this conversation going a little bit longer here because I just have a few more slides. I just think it's so impressive. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say sometimes it's helpful to not just tell it what you want it to do, but what you want it to not do. So that, because sometimes it just automatically thinks, oh, she must want this too. And instead just say, no, I don't want any bulleted points. I don't want, just keep it in APA paragraph. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've just found tell it what you don't want is
Yeah, yeah, we do that with students as well. Like, this is not what I'm looking for, and the large language models don't get offended when you tell them that. They're like, great, you're right. I should do it this way. It's kind of funny. Greg, did you have a comment?
I think that giving it the definition according to the RAFT formula really helps narrow down what you're after. It's very much like, doing research for an article, finding out what are the key words that you have to use to get the maximum results.
Yeah, when I'm looking for information or research purposes or trying to find what I would consider quality content, um, I like the libraries, functions for that, but I'll use large language models to say, here's the subject that we're studying, here's the level that we're at. I'm looking for peer-reviewed journal articles or content that I can share with my students as part of a lesson plan. So give me a list of those with links um, and tell me why this is important, almost like having it write an abstract for me before I go check out the link. But it does give me a link, and I will go and often find the PDFs on Kresge, and we have access to those, and I can put those into Moodle or whatever, but or I'll put them in a Google Notebook LM, peer reviewed sources, all going into Notebook LM that can then create podcasts and videos, study guides, mind maps. We'll get to those next week doing that, but I will often find peer-reviewed articles that I can verify, that I can actually look at on my computer. It's not just made up. And I'll start creating notebooks off of that as another way to share content with students in a meaningful way. And then in Notebook LM, they can interact with it as well. Hi, since I did not have the last question for the presentation, does it create slides for you or just content for the slides? With Gemini, if we had Gemini enabled across our workspace, which is a premium version, you can go in and create slides directly in slides. And David knows in our version of Copilot that we have at the university, you can have it create presentations in Copilot. I use an external software for this because we didn't have access to anything. And now I'm just I've got multiple systems that can create presentations as well. Is there anything, David? I don't want to put you on the spot, so please don't feel obligated. But any other comments on just using Copilot or Gemini for presentation creation?
Sometimes I like to ask Gemini to make a slide deck, and then I can just basically copy paste that right into Copilot,
Mhm.
which isn't like multi-step, but I find Copilot it does the work nice and like creates an image, but I don't feel like it outlines it quite as well. But that's just my own experience.
With this tool that I'm using, it's called Gamma, and it's $20 a month. And um, I've shared this one with Nick. It does an amazing job of quickly creating presentations, but I'm very careful about the content and the amount of information I put in there because there is that cognitive overload aspect of it as well. And that Gamma, though it will make accessible presentations, it will put, you know, just blocks of text on slides. And I'm not a fan of that because it's too much information. You're not listening to the person who's speaking, you're busy reading what's on the screen. um, it just doesn't, for me, lead to the best transfer of learning. So I've learned to change this system around to give it as minimal amount of text and information as possible on each slide so that I can use it as talking points rather than that's the focal point of the presentations as well. So I want to jump along a little bit here too. We kind of talked a little bit about this and just being iterative with our prompts. That we often think, you're welcome. The Gamma has a free version. You can only create 8 slides at a time. With the paid version, you can do 30 at a time. But with this iteration loop, again, this is more conversational with these large language models. It's not commands. We'll often think a prompt is a direct command or an order, and that's just the terminology that we use. But we think about that initial prompt and we see that output and we can refine that request. It really is that loop to help give you the quality that you want. But we're used to doing this. We do drafts. We do first draft, second draft. I'll go through and retype an email 2 or 3 times sometimes if it's an important one. I want to make sure uh, I'm hitting all the key points, or I'll ask AI to do some of the heavy lift. Here's what I want to articulate. Please just write this first draft for me. And I will harp on this till the day I'm no longer needed. Don't accept that first draft. Use that as a starting point. Fairly common. This presentation has been edited a number of times over the last few days, just to help make it tighter, make it concise, and sharing exactly what I wanted to do. But just because this is the first draft doesn't mean it's the last one. And refine those results, improve that quality. And as you start to do that iterative process more, you're going to start to become a more effective prompter the first time through. So again, an example of that iteration is write an email about new office hours. Okay. Second round, well, make it friendly and make it a bulleted list or shorten to 3 sentences. I still do this on a fairly regular basis because I'm brainstorming, I'm working through that, and it's helping me work through some of that information where, say I'm crafting an email to Nick. I'm just like, that's maybe a bit too professional for me to just to send to Nick. We're buddies. We go way back. I don't need it to be good afternoon, Dr. Bongers. I don't need to do that. I just like, hey Nick, here's what's going on. But I certainly use an iterative process when I'm going through and digging through information because I'm not just accepting that first answer that it gives me.
As a recipient of that email, I think that I would be suspicious of a hello, Dr. Bonger's kind of email as well. From you kind of want to give somebody what they're expecting too.
Yeah. And that's again speaking to that audience. If I sent you something, you'd be like, what is wrong with this guy? What's going on? So yeah, knowing your audience is important as well, but that iterative process. And I don't know what this AI image on the right is. It looks like hair wrapped around chiclets, but I'm not sure what that is. They need to try again on that image. So some of these tips. And again, we're, in higher ed and in teaching, we're accustomed to giving, feedback administratively when we supervise folks and train them and teach them along, we're giving feedback. Same type of deal here. Give that feedback, like you would a colleague. You don't have to be overly friendly or effusive in praise as they will be, but large language models, again, they lack emotions. They don't have that human capacity. You can give them feedback. You can give them hard feedback. And I have said, this is not what I'm looking for at all. And part of that is that I didn't give an effective prompt, right? But you can give feedback, say this is too friendly in tone or a bit too bubbly. And again, Nick would be suspicious if I sent something that was a bit too bubbly. Adjust those parameters. If it gave you just, a month-long grocery list of things that you need when you actually just needed something to get through the weekend, tell it to adjust the length. Again, like Nick was saying, adjust the tone if it's friendly, professional, whatever that may be, or the level of detail that you needed to go in to as well. And as we iterate, the goal is to really improve, to clarify, to refine, to enhance that process. All things that we're familiar with. We've done plenty of writing and we've adjusted our courses. We do these kinds of updates. And that iterative process, I think personally helps me become a more effective prompter the next time I go through with something on this. Maria, you have a question?
Yeah, what's your advice with I've been having some not so great results for myself with what's your advice with a prompt to really make it specific that it follows your tone or your personality or your voice? It seems like, at least in my experience, I'm not using something effective in my prompt when I provide the draft, totally in my language, in the way that I'd like to say it. And somehow, I put in like a very specific prompt and I say, keep it with my tone and style and my writing. And I make it all, specific. And then voila, it totally loses my personality. And then I'm trying to weave it back in, you know, by refinement. So
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
thoughts on that would be the more you work with them, the more they learn more of your style. They're learning about you. The large language models are about your tone, your reflection, your inflection. Uh, for me, having been using these now for 2.5 years or more, it's got a lot of data on me and how I write as well. So it's known me more. The more examples that you can give it, ask it, here are some examples of my writing. Tell me about my writing style. What is my tone? How do I write? And you can use, that example and that output to help craft what some of your next responses are going to be as well. It will learn about your writing style. It can absolutely do those kinds of things. But I'll often do similar to what you are is, I interject more of the personal style and those elements in for anything that I've written. And I don't use AI to do a heck of a lot of my email writing where it's my own personality, coming through. I'll do it more so for, you know, reports, executive summaries to put that information together. Gamma is legit, David. You're right. So, continue experimenting with that. And as it learns, more about you, and if you give it more examples of your own writing, if you're comfortable uploading that into Gemini, uh, it'll start to get better.
And just totally a tangential question, but do you have kind of a separate account that you do your personal prompts with, create a game for my kids or something versus like
Yeah,
do you use another account that's like more your research-based stuff?
I use OU Gemini for work-related stuff. I use it for that. I use my personal Gemini Pro and my ChatGPT Plus for more personal stuff or business stuff. The ChatGPT license, so it's through OU. I'll use that for work related things as well that don't require or that don't have any personally identifiable information or confidential information. Our version of Gemini through OU does have enterprise protections in place, similar to what our Gmail and Drive do. But any other tools outside of those, or excuse me, Gemini and Copilot Chat here at OU, those are not fit for personally and identifiable information or research information. At this point, so yeah, I do use different stuff for personal stuff. For content development, I'll use an agentic system called Manus because it is reasoning, it's logic. It will go through and take 15 minutes on a prompt, and it does an impressive job of helping me get started developing content. It doesn't develop the content for me. It does all the research that I needed to do instead, and then it gives me a more targeted list of things to look for and potentially use in my curriculum.
Is that free? Can you put that in the chat?
Manus, you can get free version, and there is the paid version is what I've got. It's $19 a month. This is not an endorsement of this tool on the university behalf. This is just something that I use um, for my own stuff. I think it's manus.im. Steve, you have a question?
I was just going to expand on Maria's comment about like the tone. I've been trying to do a little bit more research now that we have Gemini of like how to use this AI. And there was another presentation I was looking at, and they said just kind of providing it with examples, like here's an example.
Mhm.
So I don't know about your suggestion of like here's a similar email that I've sent in the past as an example to like kind of give it that tone and kind of to your point, maybe over time then it'll become more familiar with like how you craft all those different types of emails too. I don't know if that would be a worthwhile suggestion to help with that.
Absolutely, it is.
I haven't done too much with this. I'm just trying to dip my toes into it, but that was one of the suggestions I had seen.
Yep, absolutely, it is. I've used that. Here's an example. Um, it just slipped my mind. Oh, when I was putting a piece together for the forward together provost email, it was, here's the types of information we're looking for. Okay, so here's what we wanted to do. Uh, Here's an example of past versions of this newsletter that have gone out. I created a chatbot to interview me based on those parameters, and then to summarize it and write it in the tone of the forward together emails that we get. And when I sent that off to the person who coordinates this, we had very light editing to do. So after doing a quick chatbot, interviewing myself, summarized it, about a half an hour of email back and forth, and it was done. And I was stressing out about that for a couple of days. I'm like, oh, I have to do all this, and in about 5 minutes, I created a chatbot, and it just went through. It was very fun, but because I gave it examples, it had context on the expectation of like the level of writing, the style of writing too. You're absolutely right. Uh, Another thing too, and I've heard a few times in this conversation today, is that I'm just learning these things and I'm kind of new to it. That's fantastic. I love hearing that because yeah, I've been messing with these for a couple of years, but I'm still learning things too. And just getting comfortable with, where you're standing, firmly on the ground with this, that's perfectly fine where you're at. And if this is a starting point or the first time you're doing this, that's great. That's fantastic that you're dabbling in this and trying to learn to do it responsibly, crafting effective prompts so it's not as big of a hit on the environment as we're not doing like 3-word prompt, 4-word prompt and such too. So cheers to you on each of you, wherever you're at in your learning journey with this is fantastic. Let's see here. Could I do something on custom chatbots? Yes, I could. And now with your newfound prompting skills that you have, let it know I'm creating a custom chatbot for this particular scenario. Help me get started. And if you're in ChatGPT or Gemini, it will give you instructions on how to create that chatbot. Because remember, a chatbot is just running the same prompt repeatedly, repeatedly. You want to use this one prompt over and over and over and over. Uh, you can absolutely ask a large language model to help you write an effective prompt. You can ask it to help you write the prompt for an effective chatbot and then edit, iterate, and go through that. It's totally fair game to do that. That's how I wrote the chatbot for interviewing me as well for our senior AI literacy courses. That's how we wrote the first version of the chatbot. That is a family historian that will interview you for stories from your life and summarize it for young kids, adults, and just writes that summary up. So yeah, you can absolutely do some really cool things with prompting now. Another question here. I know with some AI chats, you can delete your previous searches. Can you do that with Gemini to avoid using the wrong AI result? I don't go in and delete all that often. I know that OU's version does log your chats as well. It does that for cybersecurity purposes, not for monitoring purposes. The conference I was just at this week, I got a wild education on the different ways that using generative AI can open up systems to cybersecurity attacks. A very enthusiastic young man from Cisco was more than happy to break down all the different ways that AI can be invasive, on our networks as well. But as soon as you delete, I believe that's going to come out of the history and the machine learning against you as well. I don't know if that answers your question, or if David, if you have anything else you want to add on to that to help drive it home.
No, I actually don't know much about that. I've been curious about that myself. As far as like, I know there's a academic conduct committee. Do they can't look at that stuff?
No, because you could ask ask a student to provide it. I don't know. I can't go into anybody else's logs. I can just look at my own. And I was working with a professor who was curious about using Gemini. Is like, well, for academic integrity purposes, to protect you and the student, it does log that entire conversation. You can see, the entirety of it and ask them to provide that portion as well. So, a couple things here. That refinement mindset. This is such an interesting AI generated image. I had to leave it in there. But really, being a partner, a collaborator, you can start broad and narrow that focus, test different ways that you want to approach using this and build on, what works, and just don't settle for, you know, good enough, like my wife did. Don't settle for good enough. You know how to edit, you know how to work these things. Uh, you know how to define what quality is for you, which is, part of your personalities that have gotten you to where you're at today. But don't settle for good enough from the AI. Push back, continue that iterative process, and use it like a collaborator that can take hard feedback with ease. So our takeaways for today, certainly look at using the RAFT to get started with more effective prompts. We know that effective prompts really equates to effective communication in many cases, and be iterative and refine those prompts to get the better outputs. So for our next session, that's going to be, I believe, next week on Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember. We're going to dive a little bit more into AI ethics and data privacy. That is a broad conversation. Curious to see how it goes. And then just continue refining your AI voice. Use it as that collaborator, as that brainstormer. Don't use it as the final authority and the final word. That is you, the human in the loop. And if you continue with that approach, I think you'll find some very cool, useful, practical ways to use large language models in your personal lives. Play with it in your personal lives. And as you gain confidence there, you'll start to see how that carries over into the more professional side of things as well. And I will always emphasize that we often hear how Gen AI and large language models they can make you do so much more work. Think of how much more work you can get done. Think of all the work that you can pass off so that you can do more work. And I wasn't born to work, I was born to live. And find ways to use this in your personal life. And I promise you will find ways to bring this into your professional life as well. And I would rather see it go that way rather than me tell you how to use this in your professional life. We've got more next week. We'll do that. If there are any final questions, I'll hang out and stick around for a little while. Steve, Robert, thank you for your feedback. Michelle, absolutely. You're free to go at this point, but I'll hang around if you have any additional questions.